Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to yet again another glorious day in life and a video. Hope you guys are all doing wonderful. For me today, it is Monday. It is the week of Thanksgiving. I hope all of you guys have a fantastic week. I hope all of you guys have a fantastic holiday. Hopefully spending time with your friends and loved ones. And yeah, I think we have a lot to be thankful for. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the E92 M3. If you haven't seen the last video, I talked a little bit about why this car is still here and why I'm no longer selling it. But I think today is a good follow-up video to why I'm actually not selling it. And a big part of that is because of all of the things that I have preventatively replaced on this car as far as like maintenance items. Now, these are the things that really matter. Mods are fun, they're cool, they might get you a little bit more attention, but really what it comes down to when having a good experience with buying and owning one of these cars is maintenance. Maintenance is literally everything with these cars. Your entire experience of owning this car, or really any BMW or any car for that matter, will be infinitely better if you're just more aware of the things that you need to replace or should replace preventatively, so you don't have to do it when it actually happens and it's like a surprise thing. So when it comes to maintenance in these cars, this information has been out there forever. I mean, these are like the main things that you need to take care of. And I'm literally just going to go down the list, and then I'm going to give you guys a total as to what I've spent so far, like with just the maintenance parts, and then also what I plan on doing in the future and about what that will cost me as well. With it also being the holidays, you guys, there are so many awesome deals to take advantage of. I've put together a list of companies that are offering some of the best deals. These are the companies that I typically work with. Apex Race Parts, they do Apex Wheels, Turner Motorsport, ECS Tuning, Keys Motorsports, all kinds of crazy deals, like some of them up to 50% off on stuff. So if you're looking to save some cash over the holidays, you guys, make sure you check out the links down below in the description. The list that we're gonna be reading off of today is actually the build list that I have created for the E92 M3. So basically everything that I've ever done to this car, performance-wise, maintenance-wise, I've put together a list, kind of like I do with all of my cars, and I've captured all of the links to those parts as well as the prices. And if I have a YouTube video on the install, I've also linked the video in the list as well. It's just a shared Google sheet that I've created, and it's completely public. You guys can check it out. My goal there is to literally just help people find the parts and know what to expect when buying these cars. And if they ever ask, you know, like, what is your wheel and tire fitment, or what suspension are you running, or where did you find this? I have a place where I can just link it, and it's a lot easier than having to explain that over and over again. So I'll have that link down below as well, and that's literally the list that I'm going to be reading off of today. So let's start with the first thing. Some of these things were kind of grouped into other things that we installed, and the first one I'm going to talk about are the BMW motor and trans mounts. If you have a higher mileage BMW in general, like 60, 70, 80,000 plus, it's going to be time for you to take a look at doing your motor mounts. Pretty much every car that every BMW that I've purchased that has gotten higher up there in mileage, I've done the motor mounts and the transmission mounts, which always makes such a big difference in the way that the car drives and just reducing some vibrations. When it comes to bad motor mounts, you just get a lot of shifting with the engine, and that can really transfer through the drivetrain and the drive shaft, and you start to feel it everywhere. So taking care of the motor mounts is a big one. A great time to do that is if you are doing rod bearings, which is obviously one of the most talked about things with the S65, and yes, you should probably go ahead and do them if you are encroaching on higher mileage. I have the ones listed in here. I did the S65 BE rod bearing and ARP bolt kit, and then I used the Castrol Edge oil, which is what is recommended and is great oil, so you should use that as well. Same oil that you would use on like an S54. Another thing that I had to replace on this car is the fuel send replacement unit. That was bad when I picked up the car. That was actually the first time I had to do anything like that, and I could just smell a lot of fuel coming from the back. Very, very common issue. On the opposite side of the low pressure fuel pump, there's a fuel send unit, and on top of that, there's a plastic piece that cracks and begins to fail over time. So what you have to do is just replace it with a new one. I went ahead and did that, and my garage no longer smelled like fuel. So that is a very common one with these cars as well. When you get to higher mileage, you might have to replace that. If you're smelling a lot of gas, that could be why. Another super common one, cup holders. As you see, Mine do in fact work. There's a couple of ways that you guys can go about replacing your cup holders. You can get the OEM ones, which are a little bit more expensive, or you can just get the aftermarket ones, which is actually what I did. And I just got them on Amazon. You can get them on like Amazon or eBay, and they're like 20 bucks or something like that. And they work just as well as the OEM ones. They are a little bit faster, so when you open them, you'll always be able to tell if they're aftermarket because they open a lot quicker. But I've had zero issues with them, and I feel like if you're gonna buy them, you might as well just buy the aftermarket ones, unless you're like a purist all the way down to your cup holders. By all means, buy the OEM ones, but that is one that I had to replace, and is very common in these cars. S65 BE rod bearing kit, we talked about this. So yes, I went with the BE rod bearings. They're great. As long as you replace them, just replace them, and I would definitely go with a aftermarket brand. So they're oversized just a little bit because the OEM ones have a very, very tight tolerance, and that's why you get so much wear on the rod bearings in the S65. So ended up doing the BE rod bearing and ARP bolt kit. Worked out great. So on here it says OEM clutch kit remanufactured. I haven't done that yet, but I am going to be doing it. I did link it on here. I don't know why I put it in the already done kit, but I didn't do it yet. It's on my list to do. The clutch is on its way out in this car, coming up on 100,000 miles. I'm just gonna have to take care of it, so we're gonna do that. Another thing that I already did is the S65 accessory belt and pulley kit. So I did all of the pulleys and all of the belts in this car. I was getting a lot of noise from the pulleys, a lot of squeaks, and it was just time. I didn't know if the previous owner did it, so I said, you know what, why not go ahead and just take care of it. We also did a full video on that install, and that will be linked in the sheet as well. While we were in there, we also did the water pump, and we did the upgraded water pump, which is the full, it's completely metal. The factory water pump has a plastic impeller, and a lot of times that can crack over time, fail. And so I just went ahead and upgraded to the metal ones, and it's been great, no issues. Windshield replacement cowl kit, windshield trim, you guys know the deal, man. Those trims just go old and flake over time. Had to replace all of those. Rear window seal, same deal, went old, had to replace all of those. Drive shaft center support bearing. So this is a super common one. If you guys have ever heard the infamous cowbell that comes from your drive shaft, ding, ding, ding. I think I included it in a video actually once. Barely hear it. But this car had it really bad. You could hear it terribly. And if you guys are hearing that noise, like when you go into first or reverse and you hear a little dink the moment that you remove the car, that means that your center support bearing has likely gone bad. The carrier, you just buy the carrier and the bearing, and it's a whole new kit, and you put it onto the drive shaft. Then that holds the drive shaft up to the body, the frame of the car. And it's a bearing, so the drive shaft actually spins inside of that bearing. If that center support bearing goes bad, then you start to get a lot of noise, and you can also get vibrations. So if you have like a subtle vibration in acceleration, that also could be an easy way to tell that it's time to do your center support and bearing. Me, I had both of them. I had the cowbell noise going on, and I had the vibrations, and even towards the end, it was making all kinds of crazy like noises. So it was just time. I had to take care of it, and I'm really glad I did. The car drives so much better. A lot of these types of things you just want to do while you're there. So while I was there replacing the drive shaft center support, I also did the shift shaft seal. So the shift shaft seal, if you guys don't know what that is, where your shift selector rod comes out of the transmission, there's actually a seal there to ensure the transmission fluid doesn't fly all over your drive shaft and exhaust and just smoke out your car completely. If you guys remember on my E36 M3, I took it to the track and it didn't last very long. The reason it didn't last very long is because my shift shaft seal was leaking profusely, so badly that the transmission fluid was going all over my drive shaft and my exhaust, and it was smoking so bad on the track that they ended up flagging me, and I had to get off the track. Cut my track time short that day, which was a major bummer. But once I took care of that, everything was good. And all of these things, the drive shaft center support, shift shaft seal, and the next one that we're going to talk about, they're very, very easy to do. I mean, this job, if you have all the parts, this job only takes a couple of hours. You may want to make sure that you do it on a lift though, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to drop the drive shaft without doing it up in the air high on a lift. It's just a lot easier. You get it done faster. The next one that you do while you're there is the shifter rod bushing. There's a little sponge-like looking bushing that's right at the end of the shifter rod, and it goes onto the selector that goes into the transmission. And if you've ever been in a car that has like a real sloppy manual transmission, it just feels like worn out, you have a lot of movement left and right, that's probably your shifter bushing. It's like a $5 part, but man, replacing that makes the biggest difference. I was so happy when I did that. I did it also on my 1 Series, and it just made a massive difference. So while you're there, yeah, spend the $5 and just do your shifter rod bushing. Mine was completely disintegrated. It's literally just like a bushing sponge. So after a while, it's just gonna completely disintegrate and leave the chat. The next one is gonna be your universal flex disc, also while you're there, in other words called guibo. The universal flex disc is what the drive shaft connects to the transmission with. It's like a really hard rubber disc, and it just got a bunch of holes in it for your drive shaft, and you bolt that up to your transmission. Over time, they get hot, they get cold, they get hot, they get cold, they get worn from all of that torque out of the drive shaft, and they end up just cracking and going bad. Again, it's about $100 and something part. You might as well do it while you're there. It's going to make a big difference. Next one, spark plugs. Duh. Everyone should take care of their spark plugs. My car was having a very poor idle for a while, and I just kind of noticed the car wasn't driving as good, and I threw in some spark plugs, and it made a whole world of difference. So if you haven't done your spark plugs yet, make sure you take care of your spark plugs. It'll make a big difference. Now we're gonna get into some suspension stuff. I did a lot of work on the suspension on this car. Probably spent the most money in the suspension, but I ended up doing the front right and left sway bar end links. Those just go bad over time. Pretty much all of these arms and bushings are just, if you have a higher mileage car, they're gonna go bad. And you know, the reason that I went back to talking about why I'm keeping this car is really because I've sorted through everything, almost everything on this car when it comes to maintenance, and I would just have to do this all over again if I went out and bought another one of these cars. So if I have any thought of buying another one of these in the future, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me to sell this one, because I'm literally just going to be spending this money all over again and going through the exact same process. Old cars, I mean, mileage makes a little bit of a difference, but these old cars, when it comes to age, you just have a lot of work to do when it comes to replacing stuff to make it drive really good. Replacing a lot of these parts, man, it's literally like a new car. Like, this car feels like probably pretty close to how it felt in 2008 when it was made, because I've really gone through and just sorted everything out, and it just drives so good. I'm so happy with the way that this car drives, and that's ultimately why I got cold feet. I did all this work at last minute, and I was like, man, it's just so good, and it's just such a solid car right now. I would just be losing my ass on everything that I've done. So front, left and right sway bar end links. We did the rear sway bar end links. If you guys are hearing like a clunk in the rear in your suspension, it's probably your rear sway bar end links. That's really, really common. I ended up doing my Olin suspension on the car, and then shortly thereafter I ended up getting some light like clunking in the rear, and it ended up being my rear sway bar end links. Replace those, good to go. Front, left, and right tension struts, in other words, thrust arms, replace those. Front, right, and left control arms, replace those. If you guys are struggling with alignments, or let's say that you think it's an alignment, or you think it's like a wheel that's out of balance and you're getting some shaking in the steering wheel up front, if you've gone through the car alignment wise and weighing your tires and wheels and everything, and everything seems to be good, if you're still getting some vibrations and some shaking, you should probably check your suspension bushings up front, because a lot of times it could be that. One thing that I actually didn't put on here that I'm just now remembering I'm going to add are the inner and outer tie rods. Those could definitely be a culprit as well, and in fact, when I replaced those on this car, it completely relieved any of the shaking that I had up front when driving at like 80 to 100 miles an hour. A lot of times it comes down to your suspension, your bushings, and things of that nature. Once they get loose, they just have a lot of play in them, and it's easy for the car to just start acting up when it gets too higher speeds. So inner and outer tie rods as well, I'm going to add that on here. Water pump, we already talked about that. And then the last two are, they're aftermarket, but they're add-ons, but they're important in my opinion. The MLT oil filler cap. Now this is a new oil filler cap that they just released and they sent it to me. And basically the way that this oil filler cap works, if you guys have factory valve covers, you already know that the oil filler caps, they all leak. It doesn't matter what you do. I've tried multiple fixes. Some of the fixes help for a little bit, but they don't last. And eventually they just start leaking again out of the top of the oil filler cap. That oil starts going down your valve covers, starts going onto your block, and it just gets all over the place, especially if you don't like take care of it and keep cleaning it up. It gets everywhere. So if you don't want a messy engine bay, you don't want a messy block or valve cover, this is a good thing to replace if you're not going to replace your valve covers. This is the MLT oil filler cap, and the way it works is you twist it onto the valve cover, and then there's actually a top portion that also twists while the bottom portion stays still, and it creates a tighter seal with that cap. So it's like a two-piece oil filler cap that screws on and just tightens up. It's really, really good, highly recommended, and it's made out of metal as well, unlike the plastic ones, so it's a little bit more. And they have like different cool finishes as well. So I'll have all that stuff linked in there. And then also the MLT metal under tray. Definitely a maintenance item in my opinion. It's an upgrade, but I would not just get the plastic or the felt ones that come on these cars. They're just gonna fail again. Get the metal ones. The MLT, in my opinion, is the one that I like. There's a lot of different brands. There's like a Turner one, ECS, they all make them too, but I really like the MLT one. It's one piece, it's really easy to install, and it gets the job done. So all of that stuff right there, we're looking at about $5,551 in just maintenance items, you guys. That's just maintenance stuff, and I've done that in the past. I've had this car for like almost a year. So let's talk about the things that I haven't done yet that I need to do. Idle air control valve, aluminum valve cover set. I am going to do those. Salon aluminum Vanos caps. That's a big one, dude, because the ones that originally come on this car are plastic, and these are all things that I haven't done yet. They're plastic and they crack, they fail. So make sure that you upgrade to the aluminum ones. I'm going to do the Salon ones. I really like Salon. That's a dope company. If you haven't heard of Salon, check them out. Brass pivot pin that goes inside of the transmission. I need to do that. I need to do the clutch slave cylinder. I need to do the OEM clutch kit, which is one I accidentally labeled that earlier. And I also need to do the fuel tank breather valve, throttle body actuators. I haven't done those yet, and I need to get them done. That is going to be an expensive one, but it's got to happen. It's easy to do, it's just expensive. And full set of 8 fuel injectors. That comes out to another $5,500. So there you go. It's going to be like $11,000 in maintenance, you know, if I were to pay full price for everything and do all the labor myself. Dude, we're talking like $11,000 in just parts. These cars are not cheap, man. Like, people buy these cars, and this is why there's so many of these cars out there that are just, they need all of this work, because not a lot of people properly take care of them. They won't go through the time and the money like I will personally with my car. And because it is, I mean, most people would see that as like a money pit. You know, you're putting a lot of money into an older car. It's not financially the smartest thing to do, but it just depends on how long you plan on keeping that car and how much you love that car, and if you're willing to do it all. Most people just chew it off over time, but I'm going to go ahead and take care of it all. So yeah, about $11,000, which is not just a little bit of money. That's a lot of bit of money. And for how much these cars are going for, let's say 30 grand, you're fucking, dude, it's going to be like a $40,000+ car. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. Is it worth it to you? In my opinion, it is. I think that, you know, these cars are worth it if you plan on keeping it, and you're just going to make the car drive so much better. So yeah, we got some more work to do. It's going to be good though. Excited to get things done. I'm pulling up to the shop. We got a lot of work to do today, man. But like I said, the list will be linked up down below, you guys. If you need anything, let me know. Happy holidays. Appreciate and love all of you guys. Make sure you check out all the specials from the partners on the channel and just in general. Also, we got a cake here for Hendel's birthday. Too hot to handle. So yeah, man, I appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Handel. Happy birthday to you. Hey! You got rod bearings on your cake, bro. Too hot to handle. Don't put oil in. Too hot to handle.
He wiped them off, don't worry.
I did wipe them off nice and good. That's
nice
funny.
and good. That's all is on the
Well,
desk.
you're
I was like,
wondering.
there you go, buddy.